this is a follow-up to the video I just posted explaining why we have the Second Amendment. And in it, I do clarify that sometimes the men and women that we may have to fear on the other side of a weapon could very well be our own military, either active duty or reservists, the National Guard, for example. We, as Americans, want to believe that our military, the men and women of our military, would never do anything harmful to the citizens of this country because they swear an oath to the Constitution and because they're our fellow citizens. They're men and women. They're our neighbors. They're in our communities. But consider, I'm pretty sure, retroactively, a lot of German citizens really truly struggled accepting the fact that German citizens became what they became during the World War II era. The atrocities that they committed against the Jews in Europe. And those Jews were also citizens of said countries, and yet we all know what happened. There's a really good book called No Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning that talks about that. So, for those of you that think that a government's military cannot be turned against the citizens of said country, you are sorely mistaken. There's many reasons for that. One, propaganda is a powerful tool. Being institutionalized and indoctrinated into a branch of service is effective and powerful. Many people that join the military, and again, I just want to state, first of all, this is not a blanket statement for everybody in the military. It's not a blanket statement. If this doesn't sound like you, then it doesn't apply to you. I don't need to hear in the comment section how you're different. But I think that we can all agree that our government, our military, does go after the youth, and especially the economically disadvantaged youth of our country. Often, what we see is that many that are drawn to join the military, many, not all, are potentially also not necessarily from areas of our country where the schooling isn't really that great. Or if the schooling was average or even good, many had to do a lot of work to keep their families afloat. And so maybe they were not able to throw themselves in their studies and really engage, especially in topics of U.S. history and government. I am not calling these people stupid. I am not doing that. So do not think that that is what I am saying. However, there are situations where you are unable to engage properly in education. That does happen. So these young kids join the military and they are indoctrinated early on. The brain is not really fully done developing until around 25. But at 18, these kids are joining and they are being indoctrinated into this military doctrine. So what happens is you get if you're looking especially at like career military that joined at 18 or even 20 or just somewhere very, very young, they're moving around constantly. The military is all that they know. Many of them will get married because it's institutionalized that you get more money if you get married young. So they will take on families. They will create families. And because they're moving all the time, they're in situations where their spouses don't really ever have a chance to work. And if they work, they don't really ever have a chance to climb in a career unless they fall into a career where they get to transfer, something that's national, but which isn't very common. This is not a common thing. How do I know this? Well, I was a military spouse for 12 years. I was married into the Coast Guard. When we were stationed in New Orleans, I did live on NAS JRB, Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base in Belle Chasse, outside of New Orleans. When we were stationed in Jacksonville, we lived right outside of the Naval Air Station there as well. So I know lots of military families. And I want to reiterate one more time, I don't mean all. This is not referring to everybody. It is referring to many. So you get a soldier in a position where they have a wife or a husband and children. The spouse doesn't have a resume that's going to enable them to find a job quickly. So this is the second reason. If they're not already indoctrinated into thinking that that's okay with doing what they're doing, well, then the second thing is that they get, backed into a corner, so to speak, where if they decide to stand up against the leadership and say, no, I will not be doing this, best case scenario, they're just kicked out. Worst case scenario, maybe they're going to spend a bit of time in the brig. They're going to be incarcerated by their military leadership. And this leaves the family, the spouse, who has not had an opportunity because they're moving every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years, raising the family because childcare is so cost prohibitive that getting a job earning very little money because they're unable to grow and get promoted within the same company doesn't make sense. So if they don't do what their leadership says, then they're without a job. Trying to find a job with a dishonorable discharge is incredibly difficult. And a spouse, a 30-year-old, for example, who has no resume, is also going to have challenges looking for work. So they're essentially backed into a corner where they have to do what they're told because they need to put food on their family's table, a roof over their head. They need to keep medical care accessible to their family, transportation available to their family. So they're backed into a corner. So you either have those that are so insanely indoctrinated into that kind of mindset where they have to do what they're told and they can't really differentiate the difference between what the Constitution says and what the leadership is saying the Constitution says, or they assume or believe with all of their hearts that there's nothing that would ever happen that would be a lie. These leaders of theirs would never lie to them, that they are agents of the Constitution, just the way that we believe that our pastors are agents of the Word of God. It's very similar. Very, very, very similar. So you either have that side or you have backed into a financial or economic corner. Our military isn't like others. I mean, I'm sure there are other nations that similarly have career military, but ours is very, very entrenched. We're not signing up for 2 years compulsory and then getting out after 2 years. As, on the whole, yes, there are those that do their 4 years, get out, call it a day, move on with their lives. But we do have a lot of career military. Not unfortunately, but you get what I'm saying. When you're a career military, when all you've ever known, the only job you've ever held is that particular military position, and it makes really good money and has really good benefits, it's a lot to ask someone to give that up on principle when they're looking at what that could do to their families. So that's what I mean. It's not impossible to believe that our government could turn our military men and women against us. And this isn't me speaking negatively of our military, because I am pro-military. Thank you for your service. I was a military spouse for 12 years. I do honor what it means to sacrifice. But I also understand that that can be manipulated. And it truly can. And we're on the precipice of that happening. So that is why we have the Second Amendment. Thank you.